Yeah, good afternoon. Luckily, there was a video in between Marco and myself because I'm actually in love with my Apple Watch. It lets me not lose any call from my wife. Yeah, I work for GE and we produce locomotives as well as many other things, but we definitely do that. And I'm going to talk to you about what is the beauty in between a frontier that is blurring in between human beings and machines and how that might turn into a positive spin. So yeah, I'll just try to give a stab on it. I'm a CIO, so Chief Information Officer. What am I supposed to be doing in 2017? That's a fundamental question that I have in front of me, and that I'm trying every single day to give the right answer to. Probably yes, and might help me. So, a bit of a calibration here. I'm not a baby boomer. There are a few baby boomers in the room. Majority is Gen Y or Gen Z, but Gen X, the one that I belong to, is the one that actually went through this one. 1990, 10 years, that was the moment where internet was growing. We were actually focusing more in the availability of the information in their basic form. There was not a lot of research on user experience, and actually applications that time sucked. I don't know if anybody of you went through Archie or Gopher for university kind of research. The most far item from the wiki that was mentioned before. Anyhow, that is what was happening. What was IT doing at the time? Well, we were connecting cables. That's in essence what we were doing. So we were plugging computers, making sure that telephone worked, that communication was there. That was in essence what falls under the name of the ICT. Connecting cables, ensuring that communication was there. One big fear was the 2000 year. There was a change in the format of the date. Nobody really knew what was about to happen. Luckily, it went well. And there was a moment where we started having a bit of outsourcing. So we decided to commoditize as much as possible many of the IT services, and we outsourced that to external suppliers. And that was me. I was at the university. I was studying logic at the time, going through my PhD, and thinking about, the wonderful future, the bright future in front of me. 10 years after, internet was becoming definitely more pervasive. It was kind of everywhere. And interestingly enough, consumers' technology was getting into the space and starting influencing the way enterprises worked. There was also the time where cybersecurity was getting a pretty high level in our attention. That was the time where we started thinking about this pervasiveness of the connectivity might generate some issues if anybody tried that. And so cybersecurity became absolutely popular. There was also the time where we started having some initial and preliminary sort of regulation about IT. SOX 404 came out. And IT was not really IT anymore. It was not ICT anymore. We thought we were capable to analyze big processes. And that's the moment where we started thinking about big ERPs. So Oracle, SAP, all of those. We thought that managing the information was much more important than connecting cables. And that drove the change from IT, ICT into IM. And guess what? That was me. I was sitting in the back room doing some sort of security role, and no need whatsoever to be reasonably well dressed. Long beard, nobody was looking at my face. So, yep, that's the way it worked. 10 years. It's hard to recap everything in just one page, but I'm just trying. 10 years after, so now, what am I doing? Internet is everywhere with the pros and the cons that comes with. Social computing, so the ability of mix and match the behavior of a machine with your social emotion and social behavior is absolutely there, and many systems are out just to do that. Technology-wise, cloud is there. Nobody is thinking about anymore to build physical data center on-premise. We just go cloud, it costs less, it works better, et cetera, et cetera. Virtualization, we're not building any more physical systems. And there's a huge amount of information that is out there. Data is probably the resource that we're not missing at all. There's good data, there's bad data, but big data is absolutely there. Analysis of the data and getting into the analytics, getting insights out of the data is becoming one of the most essential work that we need to do on a daily basis. There's this idea of having this pervasiveness of the connectivity so that internet is really everywhere. There's not a single device anymore that is not talking. Again, my Apple Watch has one bulb or whatever you guys have in mind is capable to talk. It's just a matter of putting that into the network, getting the information out of it, and use them. Cybersecurity is paramount now. And it's a different cybersecurity with respect to the one that we're used to. And just one example to make this even clearer. If you think about car stealers, the car stealer that we're probably used to is the one that goes close to the car, break the glass, get into the car, and drives the car somewhere else where, I don't know, some sort of recycle can happen. It's not anymore that particular way. So the true car stealer, the most powerful car stealer that is in front of us is a good hacker, someone that can get into the machine from remote and get the machine driving on its own to the place where the machine can be reused in a different manner. So it's a different level of cybersecurity that has to be taken into consideration. And again, the usual picture, that's just me. So that's the way I am, that's the way, I'm probably dressed the same way, I guess. But anyhow, that's what I'm doing now. Now, moving forward, there are three components that I want to drive you through. Number one, the data. How important that is, how available that is, and a few examples about big companies that are making out of the data their business. So, I think you know them all. It's interesting to see the way the biggest real estate in hotel company is made of. They own no single flat or apartment that they rent. They're just managing the information flow. They're just putting you in touch with the guy that has that particular flat that fits your needs in that particular city, that particular wick. And that company is just worth 20 billions. 20 billions is just huge. It's a number that we'll never have in our hands. Second example is Apple. It's a producer of many different things. And the majority of us thinks that Apple is making money out of the hardware. They produce this wonderful phone, iPad, computers, all of them. They do this in China. It costs not a lot of money, but it definitely gets sold for the value that the brand comes with. The reality is that the biggest chunk of the money Apple is making comes not from the hardware that they produce, but from the application economy that they set up. So they created this ecosystem where applications can be exposed and bought by the users. And the beauty is that they produce just a few of them. The majority of the applications that are out in the Apple market is just something that someone else is creating and posting there. They just put some controls on it to be sure that they're not that buggy, but they're not making them all. Again, it's at 18 billion. Those two combined do not even get to the volume that Uber is making. That's a 50 plus. And again, the beauty is that they own no car. There's not a single car that is owned by Uber. But what they do is that, again, putting you in contact with a guy that can drive you to that particular place at that particular time, and the user experience is just gorgeous. It's just wonderful. So data is there, and data will be there even more. And like it or not, this is what is going to happen. There's not a single device that is not going to be equipped with that ability to speak and talk. It goes from meters, it goes to light bulbs, it goes to industrial equipment. And again, pros and cons. One easy pros is think about the saving that you can get by having a city where the lights pop up when they are needed. But in case there's nobody that is passing through that particular road, they're just off. That's a huge saving, but at the same time, it ensures that if there's anybody there, lights are on, and that clearly reduces the possibility of any car crash. So who's going to win in this space? Clearly, the company that will be able to master the data to the highest level possible, and the company that will be able to get the most effective insights out of the data. So one example, or a couple examples that come from the company that I work for. Think about be willing to produce power for a community, for a city, for whomever is going to consume it. And think about the fact that you might be mixing and matching different sources of power. So electricity can come from the sun, can come from the wind, can come from the sea tide, can come from many different sources. And think about having the possibility to not only know how the equipment work, but also know how's the weather is going to be in the, coming 12 hours. And based on that, you know that there's going to be wind, and the sun is not going to be there, there's going to be cloud, and use that information to tune which are the machines that you're going to use so that you will produce in the right amount of energy that is needed. You'll not produce anything more, you will not have to stock, you'll not have inventory of electricity, and you'll pollute less. I think it's a good example of what information can be used for. Example number 2, this is an aircraft engine. So again, it's something that we produce, but the example actually applies to your car or to your motorbike or your cycle, whatever. And at least it definitely applies to me. If my car is able to tell me, yeah, you better go to the center, to the repair center, because there's something that needs to happen, needs to be done on the engine, or you better go there because the oil is dirty, you need to change it, or maybe the pressure of a tire is reducing. So I don't know if it is flat or not, but it can be flat in a while. So you better go. Again, knowing what is the remaining life of each and every individual part of your engine drives a better maintenance cycle and clearly reduce the cost out of it and the efficiency growth. Now, all of this combined, just for one second, would you bet on the fact that this gives you 1% productivity increase? Whatever the productivity is, might be cost out, might be efficiency gain, might be less pollution, maybe whatever you want. So 1%, I think everybody would bet on it. It's not a huge percentage, you probably can get there. But if you use that 1% on the volumes that we are talking about, and I just focus on one, the airline fuel consumption, that 1% is a huge amount. So airline fuel consumption, 1% less, that's what this starts into. It's a 30 billion saving on a yearly basis. So again, small ease in something becomes a huge cost out, efficiency gain. It clearly puts you in a much better shape and much better position with respect to the competition. So item number 1, use of the data. Item number 2, machines. Machines, assets, so whatever we have in our hands. So few prediction here. Gartner is a consultancy firm that is fairly famous in the IT space, and they have this idea of making forecasts. And there's 2 forecasts on this page. One is for tomorrow, and the other one is for the day after tomorrow. So extremely close to us. And what you see in the 2 is that there's a percentage that is changing in between the ratio between human beings and machines. And particularly what you see happening tomorrow, 2018, that the percentage of human beings that are going to be managing human beings is going to reduce, and you'll see more and more human beings whose boss is a machine or a process. Interesting. Interesting, the fact that information that can be used to drive efficiency in the human beings goes through those equipment that can talk. Fitbit as one, but I mean, health devices that can be wear is actually something that will be more and more popular. The one that I want to focus on is in 2020, what Gartner says is that the majority of the information that is going to be in our hands is going to be used to, in a way, change or reduce or destroy process and products that have been built in the last 10 years. So in 2 years from now, we'll use the majority of the information to change the way we have been working the last 10 years. That's a massive change. That's a massive change. That means that the cycle time for products and process gets shorter and shorter. And again, those changes would definitely change the way big enterprises work. It is not anything that is just in Gartner's mind, and being where we are, I thought I had to come with some sort of academic reference that you guys can go through. So 2013, it's well-established work. It goes back a few years, and this is in essence what the article says. It is based on the US market, but it's probably applicable everywhere. There's a decent chunk, there's a 47% of companies within the US that sees high probability in automation, in particular working spaces and segments. And so the way you have to read it, left to right, low probability up to high, in the band, the color bands actually tells you which are the segments of the activity, industrial activity that is becoming more and more, that can become more and more automated. And you see office and administration, finance is there, but also services. So the way you'll be able to keep your equipment running is going to be automatized more and more. And sales, commercials, I mean, having information about what customers want is clearly going to drive the way that particular guys will work. So there's a high probability that this happens in particular segments. There's an impact on jobs. There's an impact on jobs. And what we'll see happening in the coming future is that the machines will drive behavior of the human beings more and more. And the machine will tell if one activity has to be performed in one way or in another. And more, the concept of the knowledge worker is changing. And the beauty, we'll have more time, and we'll use that time in added value activities. So everything that is a routinary kind of activity is going to go this particular way. Human beings are going to be used for much more added value contribution. Third point, so item number 1, data. Item number 2, assets and machines. Item number 3 is people. So what we see happening more and more is that this idea of the consumer technology getting into the enterprise is becoming absolutely popular. There's nobody that wants to work in a company that is working different with respect to the consumer stuff that they use at home. So being this social computing, being this wonderful computers, being this immediate answer to the request, we need to have a company that adapts to what the consumer technology looks like. So this digital DNA is getting into the big enterprises and actually is forcing a change there. How does that reflect onto the IT? Well, IT is probably within a company is the best positioned function to drive this change because we know machines, we know technology. And that's my view, IT guys are usually well equipped from a brain standpoint. So the point is we need to be pervasive, we need to have intimacy with our customers, and using that, we can actually drive a product strategy more than we did in the past. So, what is the goal for a CIO? What is the goal for a CIO in 2017? We talk about data. So we need to have a nice and working ecosystem to grab information wherever the information comes from. And that's the Internet of Things platform. You can pick, there are many out there. We produce one, but there's many out. We need to collect the information. We need to have the information stored effectively in what we call data lake, cloud. There are many mantra words that you can use, but information has to be stored in a usable manner, has to be achievable and understandable. Number 3, you need to start developing analytics, and that is going to give you the right insights about how to use effectively that particular data. Number 4, automate as much as possible. Now, with this recipe made of 4 items, what is coming out is a new professional role that is what is called Chief Automation Officer. That is probably what we need to be effective in using the data. Now, back to the original question. So having said that, there's probably the 4th industrial revolution that is happening that is going to be based on data and data use, is going to be based on people, is going to be based on asset. Automation is going to actually mix and match all of those. The goal of a CIO in 2017 is actually vanish. Thank you.